Welcome to the Genuine Ginger Experience. I am your hostess, Mackenzie Quintana. And on this podcast, I share how, kind of, in a really roundabout way, how I went from being surface level happy to living a life that I truly love. And rather than how, it's more about what I have learned is kind of what I'm sharing about now. So yeah, moving forward, or at least like for the next foreseeable future, because I, again, don't really have like a full year plan or 5-year plan for this podcast or whatever. But I'm not going to be going in like any particular order. I've kind of shared the beginning of my story, and then once I decided that like enough was enough and I was no longer willing to keep living my life that way, the way that I was living it, where I was just kind of blah and it wasn't like I was happy, but not like truly deeply happy very often, yada yada yada. Dreaded going to bed at night to wake up to a monotonous day. You've heard me share this before. Once I decided that I was done with that kind of life, and I decided that I needed to change, and I realized that I had to choose different thoughts and choose different actions. Once I made that decision and started taking those actions and choosing those thoughts, my whole world kind of exploded in the best possible way. I just started learning a ton of new insights and knowledge, and it just, like I said, completely changed my life. So that's kind of now what I want to share with you is the things that I've learned. And it's a lot of very different topics. So I'm just excited. And I probably still will share, moments from my life specifically and experiences that I had and stuff like that. So it's going to be good. So full disclosure, and maybe this is going to be a little bit weird for me to talk about on a podcast, but I'm about to make it unweird because we're going to talk about more things than just periods. But so I usually try to record these episodes when I'm in my follicular or ovulation part of my cycle. And if you don't know what that means, it's okay. I didn't either up until like a year ago, and I'm 31 years old. I'm sure I learned it in like junior high health class or whatever, but I had forgotten about it. So after you menstruate, after you bleed, the days between when you finish bleeding and when you ovulate is called your follicular. And so those days and during your ovulation is when you have like peak energy, and you're like more outgoing and just more like lively, and you probably present yourself better and you speak more clearly, and you're able to just be more outgoing and all the things that involve with being that, writing better, speaking better, blah, blah. So I like to lean into those strengths of that part of my cycle and record my podcast episodes in those phases. And then I just schedule them to be released each week. But anyways, last week or whatever it was, a week or two ago, when I was in that phase, I was not feeling great. I was super tired, and just I was trying to kick this cold that I've had. Anyways, so I did not record any podcast episodes, and so now I'm in my luteal phase. I was super PMSy yesterday and the day before. So this may not go as great as it could, but I also think that maybe it's going to work out even better because of today's topic. So this leads us perfectly in today's topic, which is on how freaking amazing and honestly what a privilege it is to be a woman. And you may not agree with that, and that's okay. I don't know about nowadays, like teenagers nowadays, but when I was a teenager, and like quite frankly, teenagers nowadays, they kind of scare me. I don't understand most of their lingo or their wardrobe choice. For That's fine. Not that they don't scare me. I'm so out of the teenager phase, game, era, whatever is going on with teenagers, just because I don't have any teenagers and I don't deal with teenagers very often. So anyways, but when I was a teenager, it was very normal and kind of like the thing to complain about, aspects of being a woman, to complain about, oh, I got my period, or like, yeah, I'm so PMSy, or, like, ew, childbirth, or whatever. Like, that was totally normal and common. And there's a book, and I feel a little bit scared just even mentioning this book, because it's just the name is a little bit like, what? So it's by Regina Thomashour, and I highly recommend this book. However, a full disclosure, okay, I'm going to tell you the title first. It's called Pussy, a Reclamation. Yes, you heard that right. Pussy, a Reclamation. And so I do have to give a bit of a disclosure. I don't agree 100% with everything she talks about in this book. And it's definitely for the mature female mind. But wow. I listened to that book on audio, and it completely changed the way that I saw myself as a woman. It completely changed how I presented myself. Like, oh my gosh, it is so good. And I, this morning I was trying to find a quote from it, which I'm going to share with you in just a minute. And so I was just listening to the introduction, and I was like, oh my goodness, I think I need to listen to this again because it's been a couple years and I need these reminders. So I definitely recommend the book, but again, I just have to put that disclaimer that I don't agree with 100% everything that it talks about. But it is a very powerful book. And because of that power, like I said, it should be read by a mature woman mind, female mind. Okay, so in the book, and we'll probably, even though I don't want to, but we probably will take a deeper dive into that book in another episode, or like what she shares and talks about in the book. But in the book, she in the introduction, she quotes Dr. Christiane Northrup, who went through the author has like a school, she calls it the School of Womanly Arts. And anyways, so she's quoting this woman called Dr. Christiane Northrup, who attended all like her school and stuff. Anyways, and I remember the first time I heard this quote, I was probably, I'm pretty sure I remember I was walking. I used to walk my kids to school, and then so of course I would walk back, and on the way back I would listen to a podcast or an audiobook or whatever. And I remember I was walking back and I listened to this part, and I probably didn't like actually stop dead in my tracks, but like mentally I stopped dead in my tracks, and I like rewind it and I listened to it like probably 5 times, because I was like, oh my gosh. So this is the quote. Again, this is Dr. Christiane Northrup. Oh my goodness. Sorry, I'm still a little bit congested, and that was really gross that I just like cleared my nose on audio, but okay, sorry. Anyways, Dr. Christiane Northrup says, I've often said that if you want to know where your true power lies, go to those places you've been taught to fear the most. Your orgasm, your period, labor and birth, all processes that involve your pussy. This is where your real power lies. And again, I'm not going to get into like specifically the pussy today. And I think that it is interesting though that has become a derogatory term. I feel like I do need to touch on that. That has become a derogatory, I don't know why I can't say that word. term. And that's why the book is called A Reclamation, is because she's wanting to like kind of take that back. Um, and that pussy is just talking about that like sacral, she calls it's in the sacred temple of your pelvis, right in front of your bone, known as the sacrum or the holy bone. So I'm not like, I couldn't tell you specifically where that is in your body, but you know, I like, if I think where that is in your body. So, I forgot where I was going with this, but blah, 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 where was my train of thought going? Oh yeah, so a reclamation, it's not, I think it's interesting that has been used as a derogatory term, and it's, oh look, I said the word. And because it's actually a really sacred and beautiful thing that we as women have, and get to experience, and it's actually like our superpower. So that quote, I'm going to say it again. I've often said that if you want to know where your true power lies, go to those places you've been taught to fear the most: your orgasm, your period, labor and birth, all processes that involve your pussy. This is where your real power lies. And I believe this to be true because I believe that God created everything exactly the way that it needed to be created. And so why would God, like, I believe that, oh no, so I believe, sorry, other thought, I don't believe that God uses fear as a way to guide us. So like, if it's like, if we're fearing something, that's not usually God speaking to you. It's usually probably the adversary. I believe that God uses light and comfort and those types of feelings to guide us. I mean, I guess he can use fear, if we're like in a really dangerous situation, but I don't think that he would create our bodies in a perfect way and then have us fear a part of that, or have us like be miserable because of a certain part of our body. So why do we, at least, like I said, at least when I was a teenager, why, like, and I feel like it's still alive today for sure, in our society, that we have this stigma that like being a woman is a burden, and that like, ugh, my period, and ugh, I have boobs, and like, it's like such an inconvenience. Because think about it, like, if you're a woman, and I'm talking like you have a uterus and ovaries and a vagina, and I'm not saying that that's the only thing that makes a woman a woman. Like, obviously, there's qualities that women have that men don't, and like, I'm not saying that having a vagina is your only, what am I trying to say? Like, that's your only identity. Like, you are you, but you're a woman. Like, that is fundamentally who you are. Like, that is an inherent, like, that is, you're a woman. Like, that is who you are. And so if you're a woman and you are annoyed with, or you detest those things about being a woman, you're detesting who you inherently are. Do you see how powerfully damaging that could be to your soul, and to how you see yourself, and how you carry yourself and present yourself and believe in yourself and think about your, like, do you see that? Do you see how having a negative attitude toward being a woman can be such a detriment to you? Another mentor that I have listened to over the past few years, I haven't actually worked with her, but I've known people who have, and I've followed a lot of her work. Her name is Laurel Houston, and I remember I was watching like a free class that she was offering, and hopefully I'm remembering it right, but she talked about that the more in tune you are with your body, the more in tune you are with God. And so to me, it makes sense that Satan would want us as women to fear or hate our bodies, because he doesn't want us feeling close to God, right? And so he's going to use that tool against us. And I feel like maybe a lot of women aren't actually realizing that specific part, but I feel like a lot of women are starting to realize that, like, it's not the greatest approach to, like, hate being a woman. And so, like, a lot of women are trying to lean into, like, really loving being a woman. And so we're starting to see that shift in society. At least I am. Hopefully you are too. But I also believe that in some cases it's going a little too far. In some, like, in the name of being an empowered woman, we're trying to be like men. And an empowered woman isn't a man. It's quite different than, like, almost I wouldn't say the opposite of that, but like we're not, like, a lot of women are trying to, like, prove themselves by, like, being as strong as a man, or making as much money as a man, or doing all the things that men do plus all the things that women do. And, like, that, I don't agree with that. And it's not because, like men and women are different, and it's because we're supposed to be different, because we each have different strengths and weaknesses that complement each other. And it's such a beautiful thing. And it's not because, like, we're supposed to depend on men as women. Like, I mean, we are, but not because we're weaker than them. We'll get into all of this probably in another episode, but men, because of who they inherently are, they need to provide for women. And so if we take that away from them, we're going to have a lot of really sissy men out there. just putting that out there. Anyways, like I said, we'll probably get into, like, that part of this in another episode, but what I'm trying to say here is that being a woman, a true, beautiful, sexy, vulnerable, all the things that a woman are, that being that, be a nurturing, caring, kind women are about community, all of those things, that is our superpower, ladies. It's so cool. And having a pussy, having womanly parts is actually a really amazing and beautiful thing. And I love that I'm starting to see a shift in the media where there are, like, clothing models that are all different sizes and colors and shapes. And we're starting to kind of move away from this idea that there's this ideal way that our bodies should look. And I'm gonna just say it. I've struggled to fully love my body for a long time. Since a young teenager, I've always wanted to be skinnier. It's probably what a lot of you have felt that way. I still do. And in my church, we preach that children are of God, right? You probably believe that too. In fact, we have a song that we teach to the littlest children in the young children's classes called "I Am a Child of God." And so I was taught, probably like a lot of you, if you grew up in religion or believe in God, that you were made in his image. And in the scriptures, it says this. Genesis 1:27 says, "So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him, male and female created he them." And I up until, like, a few years ago, so I'm 31, so most of my life at this point, I've kind of struggled with that, because I'm like, okay, I'm created in God's image, but I'm a woman and God is a man, so, like, how does that work? And I didn't, like, let it bother me, so I was just like, I'm just like the woman version of him, right? But there was always kind of this gap there of, like, but what does that even really look like? And it wasn't until a few years ago that I started having a deeper understanding of Heavenly Mother, and I still don't have a very deep understanding of her. It's something that I learn about, I want to learn about more and more, and I strive to feel her presence and recognize her more in my life. But I learned that in scriptural times, and I'm like, don't quote me on this. But there is, I haven't specifically found it, but I've learned it from other people that God is actually plural, meaning man and meaning gods. So man and woman, God and goddess, Heavenly Father and Heavenly Mother. And so I am created in the image of God. I then, and I remember it was just like, I remember having just like the most comforting and like, I could not deny this truth that I was created in the image of Heavenly Mother. And how powerful that was for me to realize that I wasn't just a female version of God, of Heavenly Father, but that I was created in the image of a woman, of Heavenly Mother. And just to kind of end, I want to share an experience that I had, and it's very personal. But I feel like sharing it, and so I am. It's not like that personal, but I don't know, like a month or two ago, I was doing a meditation and meditation / visualization, and at the end of this visualization, I found myself standing outside in the moonlight, and I had had a conversation with Christ earlier in this meditation, and so he was there with me, and he was just kind of looking at me as I was standing in the moonlight with the moon, the full moon shining on me. And I am actually going to look up exactly what I wrote about this, because I want to share exactly the words that I wrote down with you. So bear with me 1 second. I wasn't planning on specifically sharing with this. So this is what I wrote in my journal. It is nighttime, and I'm standing in front of the moon, her light shining on me, the light of the moon shining on me. Jesus looks at me and invites me to see my beauty. I am reminded that I am created in her image, in the image of Heavenly Mother, even as I am right now. That perhaps her stomach isn't perfectly flat, nor her sides perfectly smooth. That maybe my body is perfect as it is, and I can love it as it is, because it is like hers, of Heavenly Mother. Jesus smiles at me as this realization sets in and invites me to walk with him. And so I hope that, believe me, I know that it's hard sometimes to love your body as a woman, especially, like I said, with society and just how we think our bodies should be. But I promise you that as you can just practice just giving your body grace, giving yourself grace, you don't have to step from kind of being not super happy with your body to completely loving it. I know that that's hard. We talked about, the steps of, the thoughts and stuff. It's hard to make that jump, but maybe just start feeling neutral about it instead of having negative thoughts about it. Just start to notice the things that you do like about it instead of always noticing the things that you don't like about it. And above all, remember that you were created in the image of Heavenly Mother, and that is beautiful. We'll see you next week. I love you. Bye.